what I wanted to do is show what I'm making. People often ask how I did the Christmas stocking, which Danny's grabbing.
Yep.
It came originally off a Kimberbell CD. Here's another one. Okay, good, thank you. What I'm talking about is, this is, oh, that's okay, Ed, I can go down. This is an example. Now, the Kimberbell CD does not have this flange on it, nor does it have what I call a faux cuff, nor does it have a lining. So people look the CD and they say, how the heck did you get from point A to point B? The process of enlarging it is step one. Also, step two, you'll notice we did a quilted back. That's simply mirror imaging the front, quilting it again, and just not doing the decorative part of it. So that's no biggie. Then I cut pieces to make the flange.
Flan? I thought flan was.
It's a flange.
Was pudding.
It's a flange.
Flange?
It's a flange. So 1 inch strip, okay, that's going to get folded in half and stitched on here, right? No biggie. See, here's my back, here's my front. The question is, how did she create that cuff? That's what I get all the time. Where did that cuff come from? And it was created in Design Center. So I thought it would be fun to visit the Design Center, because we haven't in a while, and show you how to create the cuff. The first thing I need to do is determine how big I want my cuff to be. And what I did is measure raw edge to raw edge, 7.5 inches. And then I said, how high do I want it to be? You notice this stocking shape is a little different because I was showing. So, and then I said, okay, let's make the cuff. Let's make it finish at 4 inches high. So I'm going to start with 4.5 inches because I have raw edges to deal with. We're going to make a rectangle that's 7.5 by 4 inches, 4.5 inches. And that's going to work as a placement stitch on our stabilizer. So, if you are going to make us a rectangle,
we will make a rectangle
that is 7.5 by 4.5. So, you ready?
I'm ready.
You're ready. So that what I do is use, they call it I call it shapes. I think if you look it up in your manual, they would call it stamps.
Stamps, yeah.
Which I find very confusing.
Well, I think that the stamp comes into play.
Okay.
So a rectangle is a square.
You start with a square.
Yes.
You do.
Because all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares.
Right. And all we're looking at here, all we want is something. We don't need it a filled square at this point. We just need what you're seeing there. We just need
because this is
outline.
going to give you a filled square, and this is going to give you a filled square with an outline.
Outline. All I want is an outline.
So we have outline highlighted. So I'm going to hit OK. So we brought our square in.
Yes. Now, that's not the right size.
Yes, but one thing I just want to point out, the way that Design Center works is when you first bring it in, you can manipulate the square individually if there's other things on there. Mm-hmm. Once you move off of that square, it flattens everything and it becomes part of any components you have behind it. So I'll always make sure.
That's why I'm building it by component. That's exactly why.
So I'm gonna hit size, and then I'm gonna do. We want 7. You said
7.5.
So the arrows go out. So I'm just gonna.
Is that showing up okay? People can see that.
Do I need to zoom in a little bit, or is it good? Good. Okay.
We're changing the size of it by choosing.
Because you can see up here the size. As I hit this, it goes a little bit bigger.
Someday, Brother's going to let us just type in the size.
I'm hoping.
This arrow click
and then,
thing drives me
we've got
nuts.
our width hit, and then how tall is it?
4.5.
4.5. So we're going to hit this one here and bring it down to our numbers are 4.5.
This is why I say save components, because it's kind of a pain in the butt to do all this.
So there you go. So you see up here, our rectangle is now 4.5 by
7.5. And you see on the screen, it sort of looks like that.
And it looks like that. So
right, say OK.
And then I'm going to hit memory.
Actually, I was not going to have you hit
memory. No, I'm not going to hit memory. But
I want you to assign stitches to it next. Because right now, it's just a
block. It's a box.
A box. And now we want to assign stitches to it because I want it to work as a placement stitch on my stabilizer that tells me where I'm going to put my batting down, because there is batting.
Okay.
All right? So now we want to assign stitches to it.
So this is line. There's two things to keep in mind on the design center. This bottom portion is usually fill areas. The top portion is usually lines. So we want to assign a line to that. So we're gonna change our line property, and we want to do a running stitch because
Right.
we're just doing a placement
And
stitch.
unfortunately, on our machines, we cannot choose a single running stitch.
But well, the reason I like to do a color change, so I'm going to change it to red. Then you can really
See it.
yeah, because now you'll see. Now we want to change. Then I'm going to hit this bucket here, which is going to be our line fill property. And if I tap this line, you see how it just turned. I don't know if you saw it on there, but it just turned red.
So we know
So-
we have stitches
Yeah,
assigned.
so we know that the change that we wanted to happen took place because it turned red.
Right.
Next.
Mm-hmm.
What are we looking for?
This I guess you can hit memory on the other machine on the screen too. On the brother on the Dream
Dream
machine,
Machine,
we
you
cannot.
Yeah.
That's and I was working on that, so I had to go. Now what just happened there, guys, is it did not save it as an embroidery thing. It did not. It saved it in that special little area of Design Center.
It's still in the design center format.
Thank you.
Um,
It's not a stitchable thingamaboo at
So
this
if-
point.
so
It's
if
a
you-
component.
so if you actually saved it to a USB from here,
Mm-hmm.
and then you took that USB and plugged it into another machine, it would have no idea what you just did because
Correct.
this is it.
But it's important if you're building components in
Yeah.
Design Center.
Now, if
This
you-
is one you would use again.
if you
and
brought it
again.
to another machine and opened up Design Center, you could
Uh-huh.
import it, but you cannot bring it up as an embroidery file from here.
Okay, so go back. But
Okay.
all right, what's happening? This is the point where it's actually converting it to a PES file, where it's actually converting it to something that we can embroider with. The reason you're going to get this message is it's going to say, hey, you're leaving Design Center, so that's not going to be saved. So if you didn't save it in your memory and you're
Mhm.
going to want to use it later, you're not going to be able to.
Yes.
Okay, that's what this warning is. We did save it in memory. So now we say okay
So I'm gonna hit OK.
because we're converting it to
Now this
embroidery.
and this screen should look really familiar to lots of people.
Now I want you to go into embroidery for a second. I want them to see what you actually have over here. You actually have a square that will stitch out.
In red thread.
And it would be a placement stitch, okay? Now what I want you to do is I want to save this. Now when I'm hitting memory, my friends, I am saving it as an embroidery file.
Yes.
Now this is a placement stitch of this size or a rectangle of this size that I can use again and again. And guess what? I need it twice on this project.
We're gonna go back to add.
Okay, so everybody, we built one rectangle,
And-
7.5 by 4.5.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're going back into Design Center.
And now-
We're going to
okay.
create another rectangle. Only this rectangle is going to be 4 by 7. And why? Because that's where my batting line is going to
Okay.
be.
So
I am now completing a batting
your
line.
workflow is different than mine, so we'll do it your way.
Surprise!
I,
Surprise!
I see now what you're doing, so I'm just
Okay.
gonna get there.
Shortcuts, Brent. She does not.
She's adding an extra step that makes sense from a simplicity standpoint. I understand why you're doing
Just
it.
do what I say.
I get what you're doing now.
Have
And
I
it-
lost anybody?
So I'm gonna do the same thing we just did.
Yes, we lost 100 people that were watching.
I'm building the components that I will then put back together. That's what I'm doing. So the next component I need is a rectangle that's going to say,
Bless you.
I'm tacking your batting down, and it gives you a trim line, and you want it to be half inch smaller top and bottom because I don't want batting in my
Yeah, and that makes sense.
seam allowances.
Yeah. So if we go back here, so I just made a rectangle. Same thing we just did. That's 4 by 7. So I'm going to do
Correct.
that.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit OK, and then again we're going to change the.
Assign stitches.
So we're going to change it to a running stitch, and
Give it a different color.
we're going to give it some other than red.
Yep.
So we're going to go yellow. We're going to do the line fill. It's now yellow. We hit what you can't see on the screen, but next.
Okay.
And I'm going to
Okay,
say
memory.
I'm saving that one to memory as well,
Yep.
and then I'm going to set.
And when he says set, this is what translates it now to an embroidery
Yes.
file. Now I want you to save it here. So now I've got a 4.5 by 7.5. I've got a 4 by 7. John is gone. No,
John
sorry.
has left the building.
What else do I need? I need the quilting stitch. right?
Yeah, you want to put your cross hatching in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back to Design Center we're going to go. We're going to build
home.
a quilting stitch. And this quilt stitch is going to be the 4.5 by 7.5 filled.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to my memory,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to pull up the red one.
See the difference? All that's in memory on this. This is Design Center. See how there's hardly anything in here because this is the first time we've built components.
Mm-hmm.
But anytime I come into design, I now have these in there.
And because we did them in different colors, I know the red one is the big one. So I'm going to hit that and hit OK.
So now what we want to do is we want to fill that.
So we come here to area fill,
Mm-hmm.
and then we want to use one of our fancy stitches, I imagine.
Yes, go there. We're going to select and see the diamonds there. I want you to choose the diamonds.
The diamonds.
And let's pick a different color for it.
Let's go blue. How's that sound?
Okay.
And then you do area fill, and then you just tack your area.
Now, that's not the right size for me because those
Now,
are dinky. So we're
A
going to.
quick question for you.
Yeah.
Are you going to want the outline stitch on this particular stitch?
No.
No. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to this. This is a no stitch. I'm going to hit OK, do our line fill, and then tap our outside, and that should turn back to black.
Yeah. I think on that other screen you could have done that in the fill as well. Just choose.
You could have, but I don't know that it would have taken because we already brought in the outline with a running stitch on it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You got me on that one.
Now, on the Luminaire, you can make this change on our next screen. You could change that to a no stitch.
Yeah.
On the Dream Machine, you cannot change that to a no stitch on the next screen. That's one of the limitations.
And I didn't. Yeah. But let's go to next because we're not done because the
Yep.
size of that
Yep.
is not okay.
Yeah. So you can make like those. There's changes you can make here. Like I said, if we could change that line back to a stitch here if we wanted to.
Right.
But you can't do that on the Dream Machine.
No, you
Line
cannot.
properties are set.
The only thing I really care about on here is the first one where it says size 100%. I want to blow it up to about 175.
So I'm going to go there, and I'm going to about 175. You said?
Right, and that's just giving me bigger patterns. Now, the Illuminaire previews it beautifully.
Yeah,
for
what
me.
you see is what you get.
The Dream Machine, you are not going to
not.
see the results until you get over into embroidery land.
Yes.
Why? I don't know, but I guess that's why we
It's
pay
got
more
some
money.
some computational issues because you don't
We
have
pay
enough.
more money
yeah.
for the Luminaire. But see how I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across? Literally, what I do is I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks good to me.
Oh.
That's how I determine the size.
You just count it.
I
That's
count
okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I play with my machine, and I happen to know.
The cross hatching on this
No.
comes in the pattern. It's not the
Yeah.
same.
This
So you're
is from the CD.
Yeah, you're matching it.
And I'm trying to match this as closely as I can for my cut.
Yeah.
That's how I do it.
I didn't redo it.
No. Okay,
Okay.
so back to the machine, please.
So I'm going to put this in memory.
We are. Now notice we're hitting memory before we translate it. Because
Yeah.
now I have this available at this size diamond that I can make any size I want.
Yep.
I can. It's modifiable in the Design Center. Okay. So now he just translated. Did you save it in memory over here?
I'm going to save it in memory here.
Okay. All right. Now, I want you to get rid of it. I want you to go home for a minute so people can...
Now, it's important that you go home because the order in which you bring patterns in is the stitch order. So
It is.
am I going right into memory?
The first thing we want to bring in is the placement line that we're going to stitch on our stabilizer that's going to tell us where to put our batting down.
Why do I pull everything? So that's going to be our... So there. I don't know, I might hit it twice. Who knows?
Okay, so that's that first stitch, right?
Yeah.
So then picture, I've stitched it out, put my batting down. Now I want the smaller rectangle to tack my batting down.
So I'm going to go into
Add.
add, yep, I was looking for the pocket. So then we're going to come back down here. And then we know that the yellow
Mm-hmm.
is the inside.
Yep. So see what's happening here? Now I stitched my batting and I'm trimming my piece of batting. And then the next thing I want to do is put my material down, right? And then I want to stitch my material down.
So do we want to do
We want to do another big rectangle.
another big rectangle? So I'm going to come over here and grab another red rectangle. Now, do we want to change the color on that or leave it red? I guess it doesn't matter.
Well, it does because I want it to stop to trim my batting.
Yeah, but
So I
we,
definitely want it to be a different color.
So-
But we can. You want to do that now?
we can just do it real quick.
Okay.
It's easy to do right now because it's
Okay.
on the bottom.
What
Nice.
happens on your machine is you want it to stop between each of these
Yeah.
steps because I have something I have to do.
Yeah.
That's why.
And so we just changed that to blue so it's not the same color as the first step to make
Which
sure that
causes the
yeah.
machine to stop.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we need to add our cross hatching.
And there's that.
And now I want to add a name.
But I don't know if that's the same blue as the one above.
Now,
it,
you
so I
could
can change
save
that.
this to memory now, and what you've done is you've created an entire stocking cup that, and then you would just have to add a name to
Yeah.
it.
So you could just hit
So you
memory.
could save that all together now if you wanted. It is very stitchable.
Yeah. And so if you're doing multiple stockings, this is where you'd want to save it.
Yeah, now let's add a name.
All right.
All your stockings are all sizes.
Well,
So you can modify the size.
Yeah. so what name we putting on this one?
Ronnie.
What font? I think that's my favorite font right there. No? Okay. Which font?
I
you
don't
want
care which font you
in?
use.
Did you want to go with this one here?
Whatever font you want.
That looks like a Ronnie font to me.
Okay. Now say
But-
set
I don't know what that says.
and set, because we can change the size here,
Yeah.
which is what I want to do. That's too small in my cuff, because lots of shorter names. I don't want everybody's name. I want it to fit the cup.
Yeah.
So see what we're doing now is, because Ronnie is selected, we are now, there's a limit to how big we can go.
Yeah, but,
But-
that won't be bad because that's
No.
going to bring out, yeah. It says we want to change the larger frame.
Oh, you're going to rotate it. Tell them what you're doing, Brent.
Well, I was doing an array so that I could rotate everything at once instead of the individual patterns.
Well, just save it to memory, bring it back in, and you can then you're saving it as one fell swoop. You're saving
Well, I'm gonna wait before I put the hoop in so it doesn't know that it doesn't like it, and then I'm gonna hit rotate. How's that sound? All right, so there you go. I think I can both of them on there. Kind of.
Woo!
All right, so we're just gonna hit
Scared
go.
me. Yeah, I wonder what happened to your phone. Okay, so what we're doing now is that very first step, right?
Yeah.
If Brent and I did what we were supposed to be doing, what it's doing is it's doing that. We don't have to do the whole thing because it goes around twice. You actually, if you don't need it to go around twice, you can stop it and
Yeah.
then skip to the next,
Yeah.
which is what we'll do.
Okay.
Okay. So
Because this is just the placement stitch.
this is telling me where I'm going to put my batting down. So next
that's good.
step, there we go. This is now going to do the little guy,
The tack down.
the tack down. All
We'll
right.
do it with some wool. This will be kind of
All
fun.
right.
See what kind of-
Okay.
Oh, I can't wait to see the mess this makes.
I'm sorry.
No,
Want
I've
me to
ne-
go look for more?
No, I've never done it with this, so I'm very
yeah,
curious.
you know what? That's going to get hung up on that embroidery needle.
I don't know. Let's
severe.
see. I'm curious.
Shouldn't.
Let's all learn something together.
That
Yay!
is not good. I would hire my embroidery foot, and if I were at home doing this,
Yeah.
I would have to see. I would not stick my fingers in the hoop. I would hire my embroidery
Yep.
foot in settings so that my embroidery foot isn't going to get hung up on my
Like it
wool
like
batting.
it's like this happened.
I don't use wool batting in embroidery. It's very
Like if you had something old like
yeah.
Yeah, but if you put some water soluble over the top of it, it'll probably work fantastic.
that. Oh,
Or
that would be
just
my view.
tearaway topping or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. The water soluble.
Bottom line is, look what we got. So
that-
that's that. So then you would take it out and you would trim it.
The original placement stitch is a 1/4 inch out from the edge of our.
Isn't that magic? because by default, every time you bring something in an embroidery to build your design, it automatically centers them. I forgot to mention that. So we didn't have to worry about centering anything.
Yeah.
We built our components over in Design Center, we saved them, and then we built this little thing in Embroidery Land. So now what it's doing is it's tacking down our fabric. It'll be fun.
I was gonna say, have you seen how far what we've done so far, Danny?
In the
Do
fabric,
you really think we need to bother with tape at this point?
the fabric now is back to that large rectangle because that's going to tell me where I'm going to cut when I'm done.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is also my cut line. So my batting is not in my seam allowance because he's a 1/4 inch smaller.
And you might not have seen this, but I switched the foot height back to where it belongs before I started again. Because remember, we doubled the foot height so we could work with the wool?
Right, but I would have left it up because you're going to quilt that wool.
Okay, I'll put it back.
It should probably ride okay because you've got fabric on it now.
Yeah.
But my rule of thumb is I want my embroidery foot to skim my surface. Crosshatch
We're
design.
on the crosshatch now.
You're right, Jean. I did save the design in Embroidery Land with the crosshatch in it.
Yes.
I saved everything but the name.
There you go.
So that I can just bring this design up again and again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
And now it's doing the crosshatch. Isn't this cool? I hate stockings that don't lie correctly on the mantle. I like them to all face forward and at the right angle. And if you just use regular ribbon, that ain't going to happen. So what I like to do is hide one of these little sticks, these little bread tags.
Bread tie, yeah.
You can also use a pipe cleaner. That would work too. And inside this, I have a little thing of fabric, and I have cut a little piece of batting. He hides in there. This guy goes in against the batting, and then I just fold it up, and I stitch it closed. And then I have the ability to